Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal, where you can see I'm joined by James Benge for this week's Inside Arsenal Extra Time. James Benge sitting in new surroundings as well. So I'd like you all to join me in passing on your congratulations to him for his house move. How are you settling in, mate?
I'm settling in very well, thank you. I had the most wonderful experience on for most of Tuesday, certainly before the game kicked off. I don't want to dox myself on here, so I'll say walking down a major thoroughfare to the Emirates, really getting to sort of soak up the atmosphere, past the Tollington, past the Eaglet. I realise I am now doxing myself, but yeah, I'm in that sort of neck of the woods. Through the past North Bank season, I was there in about 20 minutes. It was magnificent and really lovely to be in the right part of London, it has to be said.
Very nice. I look forward to being in the same situation as you, hopefully in about 2 months' time, I reckon, maybe 3 months'
Are you
time.
moving? You moving?
Not moving to your area, not moving to that area, unfortunately. But hopefully I would have completed the house move in about 3 months' time. We're at the very annoying solicitor stage at the moment, and forms and all that sort of stuff. The fun bit of finding a house, that's all in the rearview mirror now. It's a case of actually moving and getting everything sorted. So it's nowhere near as much fun. Huh?
You're going to hate it.
Yeah, it's not. It's already not much fun, and we've still got a few months to go of it. But I'm looking forward to that feeling that you've just had of sitting down on the first night and sort of being in there and thinking, "We've done it. It's all over.
We've done it. God, there's so much to clean."
Yeah, I imagine that all follows as well. But yeah, you touched on Tuesday night. Obviously, after your little brisk walk through the North London streets from your new house to the Emirates, it was well. There were highs, there were lows. It was very in keeping with Arsenal season. We'll start with the highs, shall we? And it was a big, big high. It was a lovely moment. It was a moment we've all waited 3-4 months for. The noise, in a game that was pretty flat atmosphere-wise. It was lit up by Bukayo Saka every time he got off the bench to warm up. The noise when he walked to the touchline to actually come on that swept around the stadium. I was listening to Tom Kenny interview today, and he was warming up at the time, and he thought that Arsenal had scored. He wasn't really paying attention. He said the noise was so loud that he thought Arsenal had scored, and looked up and it was Saka getting ready to come on. And it was very, very special. And then to score within 7 minutes and basically score the winner in the end as well. It just it couldn't have really got any better, Bukayo Saka wise anyway, for Arsenal on Tuesday night.
Yeah, Tom, if you're watching, it would have been quieter if Arsenal had scored. I think I'm open to no one. I put this on Twitter, but because no one engages anymore, no one actually gave me an answer. But I think that's the loudest I've heard the Emirates since Declan Rice's goal against United.
Potentially so. It was very, very loud. I totally lost my voice. I tried to speak the next day, sort of start off my video, and honestly, actually, when I woke up in the morning, I went to speak to my wife, and I generally couldn't talk. And I thought, I didn't really shout that much because it wasn't a very shouty game. Yeah, the atmosphere wasn't great for that match, but it was just all around that Saka's return and the noise and everything. It was incredible.
It was amazing he got that as well. I think. I mean, you were there, weren't you, that night when Thierry Henry came back, and that's kind of where your mind goes to, even though the absence has been a lot less. I don't think Bukayo Saka would ever have doubted how deep the affection was for him in this part of the world. And I don't think any Arsenal fan kind of didn't know that Bukayo Saka was special, that he was one of one. But still, I think this, to me, it cements this idea that he is, he just means so much to Arsenal fans. He is the hero. He's the player that I think this club has sort of been hoping for and dreaming for, and that every club dreams of, isn't it? One of your own that goes on to become one of the best players in the world. It seemed to me, like kind of reading what he was posting on social media, that even he was sort of taken aback a little bit, and I'm glad he was, because it's what he deserves, and it's really hard to give a footballer those moments otherwise, because sometimes you're cheering the goal and you're cheering the result, but you're maybe not just like, actually, Bukayo, just so you know, it's all about you. Without wishing to sound like McFly, but it was really special. And then a nice little finish as well.
Yeah, you're right. The sort of the Henry against Leeds, that was immediately where your mind was taken back to. Is there anything I can really compare to it? Or also Robert Pires coming back for Villarreal in the Champions League quarter-final And Arsenal were sort of 3-0 up and cruising, and we knew we'd gone through, and it was just like the last 30 minutes of that game was just serenading Robert Pires for the entirety of the remainder of the game. You know, those were the only things I could really compare to the noise of Saka's return. And you're right, if he was in any doubt of how Arsenal fans felt about him, he can't be anymore. No doubt about that. You touched on the goal there, and it was a very easy finish, obviously, but how many times have we seen Arsenal players not be in that position to take advantage of that easy finish? And that's what Saka does, doesn't he? If he's not scoring goals, he's setting them up, but he just sniffs out. He's just in the right place at the right time. And I think that's also what sets out the best players from the very good players. But and Saka's got that. And so it was a lovely finish. Brilliant from Martinelli as well in the build-up, the sort of driving run, the little flick. Whether that was an attempt at goal or not, I don't know. But it capped a good night for Martinelli, obviously in a pretty mundane win for Arsenal, but a win which was an important one. Alas, as the season goes, you get one nice thing back, a nice thing is viciously taken away, as we have since found out. Gabriel out for the season with that hamstring injury. I was, when I talked about the sort of flat nature of the atmosphere at the game, when that happened, I could barely talk for the next 15 minutes. I was so gutted about what it meant, because obviously you knew straight away he was out of Madrid. We didn't know if he was out of the season, but you knew there was no coming back for the Madrid games. He was done. And all I could think about was that in my head, and you could sense there was that murmuring around the ground. It was all anyone was thinking about for the next sort of 10, 15 minutes or so, because it's such a monumental blow for Arsenal and their chances of getting past Real Madrid. And we've since obviously found out it's another Saka, it's another Havertz. It's just the worst hamstring you can get. And, hopefully he'll be back for the start of next season, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, what are your thoughts on it in the sort of immediate when you saw it, and then since we found out in terms of how bad it is?
And I mean, I did think as well with the atmosphere, I think Saka being back had just kind of given you that opportunity to hope. Madrid haven't been like sort of setting the world alight of late. I know that Arsenal fans are not clocked into every single Real Madrid result, but I think there was a sense of sort of, well, if we've got an approximation of the best back four, and we've sort of got everything other than a centre forward, give this a go. We can ride the defence. This is what the fans are thinking. We can ride the defence. We can get a bit lucky. Maybe Mbappe has an off night. Maybe one of them gets suspended. Unfortunately not. And, with Big Gabby and Saliba anchoring a defence, there's a chance. And actually, I've sort of come back towards that idea in the last few days. But even then, it's just like Arsenal haven't got the full strength defence to ride. They haven't got the attack operating at its peak. The midfield, it keeps feeling like every time there's something that gives you a little bit of hope for the Champions League now, like it was for the Premier League 2 or 3 months ago, it is just smashed back in your face. And of course, the fact it's Gabriel, and he is really the figurehead of the Arteta revival in terms of recruitment. He's the guy that they spent a lot of money on at a difficult time. They kind of trusted through the hard moments, and have developed into one of the half dozen best centre backs in the world, in my view. It just felt really cruel. It felt cruel for Gabriel. He deserves this. Yeah. Like Saka deserves this. Like Saliba deserves it, but I don't really want him to play against Real Madrid if I can help it. Like, there's so many players that deserve this moment, and the club deserves this moment. And yeah, it completely felt like it was robbed from him. Completely.
There was a look on his face as he was walking around the pitch. You see it in the camera shots, don't you? The realization in his face of what he was missing. He knew, obviously, straight away. He knew how bad it was, and that he wasn't going to be playing against Madrid. And you're right when you talk about there, you kind of feel robbed of that. It would have been such a great spectacle to see Saliba and Gabriel up against that Real Madrid attack, and you would have backed them. It would have been tough, no doubt about it, but they would have relished it. The way they love playing against Haaland and how up for it they get and all that. That would have been exactly what it was like. And with those two there, you always felt like Arsenal had a chance. And I'm not saying they don't have a chance. It's obviously the chances have gone down now after that injury, but they still do have a chance. Stranger things have happened in football. They can still get through. I'm not saying it's done and dusted, but with those two there, I felt like the tie was there to be won. They could win it. I think now it's going to be a much more of a struggle. We'll talk about who's going to play at centre back soon. But you're right. I just feel like for those massive Champions League occasions, which this is going to be, it's going to be huge at the Emirates, and I'm missing it, which drives me mad even just talking about it. But the spectacle, the occasion, and there's going to be a stadium-wide sort of display before the game. And, I was there in 2006. I remembered what it was like to play Madrid in these huge games. And it's just going to be so, so special. And for Arsenal's best centre-back, which he has been this season, without a shadow of a doubt, their leader at the back, to be missing for it, I just think it's such a shame for the game, for the competition, for him, for Arsenal, for the fans. And that's why it kind of just adds to the disappointment of how this is all panned out.
The leader point's really important. I think we probably would say Saliba has more technical qualities than Gabriel, but Gabriel's the one that keeps them in line.
Absolutely.
Gabby is, he's a captain on the pitch. Every time he takes the pitch, he typifies the attitude of the Arsenal defence. He loves defending, and that's what's exactly what you're saying, isn't it? I think he would have been so excited to run up against Vinicius and Mbappe and Rodrigo. Especially, I think the fellow Brazilians as well. I think he'd have been like into these. And for me, it's gone from a sort of 55-45 to 62-38 in Madrid's favour. I'm coming around to the idea that it's still there.
Well, I think a lot of it is going to rely on Tmber and White, isn't it? Now, see, that sort of added to it as well in the second half. And you saw Tmber go down with about 10 minutes to go. He'd already been down in the first half. And you're just like, this is just taking the piss now. Surely not. Mikel was speaking about it. Actually, I've got the quotes here because Mikel's just had his press conference at the training ground ahead of tomorrow's game against Everton. So he's been speaking about the injuries and White and Tmber. And this is what he had to say. First of all, on Calafiori, Calafiori's done. He says, Ricky is not fit. That means in last week, so we've lost 4 players. That's obviously a big task. But let's see how Ben and Jurrien are tomorrow. And that's it. We must keep playing and competing the way we have been. So he was then asked if White and Tmber could be fit to play Everton. He said there's a chance. Yes. And on whether he would risk them with the Real Madrid game coming up. He says the problem is that we have a few of those calls. So we're going to have to decide this evening or tomorrow, very early in the morning, which players we can play and for how long, especially on playing, more players out of their usual positions. He says there are a few on the table. How far we have to go down that route? Hopefully not that deep, but there's always options. So, I'm very aware that this is Mikel Arteta talking about injuries, by the way. And when we'd just seen Martin Odegaard limp away from international duty, boarding a plane with his foot basically hanging off and in a protective boot, he said he had a chance of playing the next day against Tottenham in the North London derby, and we didn't see him again for like 3 months. So I'm very aware of that. But if this is true, what he's saying is true, and we've got to take it for his word at the moment, that there is a chance that White and Tmber could be fit for Everton. That's a big decision with that Real Madrid game looming large that he's got facing him. Obviously, White wasn't involved at all in midweek. Tmber did play, started, came off with that injury in the second half. How would you play it if you were Mikel Arteta? Presuming these two are both deemed available tomorrow, how would you play it ahead of the Real Madrid game with these two?
So my starting point was, I think there's enough time and enough value to it that you start broadly the team you want to start against Real Madrid, against Everton. And then it just becomes a question of, assuming that they're available to be selected, it becomes a question of, do I trust that Ben White is really ready to go? And as much as it sort of say this through gritted teeth, I just don't think so. I think what we saw, understandably, for a guy before the international break that was coming back from knee surgery, was someone that was learning to sort of trust their body again and learning to reestablish their rhythm. And then when you discover, as Arteta sort of told us on Tuesday night, that the issue was with the knee, I just don't trust that he would be at his athletic best. And considering where you'd almost certainly have to put him on the pitch, I can't afford to not have the best athletes in the team there. So I would play whatever White status. I would play Tmber at right back, Saliba at right centre back. I don't think he's anywhere near as good at left centre back, though still great. Jakub Kiwior, I played the full 90 against Everton, and I plan to play the full 90 against Real Madrid, and then Miles Lewis-Skelly. I don't actually think there's another option. otherwise you're moving two good players out of position, rather than trusting in someone who may not have form, but he's got fitness and he can win that form against Everton. That'll be a good test for him, a different test to what Real Madrid pose, no doubt. But get some rhythm in that game. He tends to play well when he's next to Saliba, so that's what I'm going for.
So and this is your predicted 11, or not predicted 11. This is the 11 that you would go for.
This is the 11 I would go for. Marino too. I just more because it gives you a bit of an out ball, doesn't it? And it gives you a way of keeping possession. What I really like about that team is I think he'd be really good at keeping the ball. And Real Madrid
but this is for Everton, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm playing that. I'm playing that team basically to get everyone settled in and ready for the Real Madrid game.
So you're starting Saka tomorrow?
Yeah, with the expectation he'll come off a fair bit earlier than normal. But again, it's about getting people in that rhythm, ready to start. And I would take Saka off at about the, I don't have his data in front of me, but around the hour, I would think. Again, kind of sort of seemed to me from seeing him in the flesh that he looked good to go. He looked like he could have played more minutes than he had. And obviously this has all got to be a graduated thing of getting him back good to go against Madrid from the off. And I think it's good to have had a start beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's your 11. This is what I would go for tomorrow.
Oh.
So I've got my eye on Madrid. I wouldn't play Tmber. I think if White is deemed fit enough to start, I would try and get 60 minutes into him tomorrow because I would want him. I think I want to play him against Madrid if he's fit. I would move Saliba to left side as centre back and play White and Saliba against Madrid. I think this is depending off that if they believe White is fit. If he's not, and it's a real risk, and I wouldn't do it. So I'd be listening to my medical staff here. But if they're telling me Ben White is okay to go, I would certainly play him against Everton and see how he looked with my mind thinking, I want to play you against Madrid. I just wouldn't play Tmber tomorrow at all, even if he's fit. I don't think you need to risk him because he doesn't need minutes. He doesn't need to get some rhythm back into himself. He's fine. He can miss tomorrow and then you play him against Madrid. I think you have to protect Tmber at all costs tomorrow, I think, because he has to start against Real Madrid. If Timber's out against Real Madrid, Arsenal, I think, lose convincingly on Tuesday night. I think they lose by at least a couple of goals on Tuesday night. If you're playing Partey at right back against Real Madrid, I think it's you're talking disaster night for Arsenal because they will target that so much, and you're also moving Partey out midfield. So yeah, if White is deemed okay, I would start White and get 60 minutes in him at right back. I'd go Saliba, Kivior, and I'd play Tierney tomorrow. I'd rest Luis Skelly ahead of Madrid. I would bring in Jorginho and rest Partey ahead of Madrid. And then Odegaard, Rice, Nwaneri, Marino, Martinelli. I think I'd try and get Saka 35 minutes tomorrow with a vision of 60 minutes against Madrid. I think.
Here's my question. You'll hate for you. Let's say I'm throwing it ahead to Madrid now. Let's say that White and Tmber both can't play against Madrid. What do you do?
I play Tmber. Well, both can't play against. Both round. Oh right, I would cry.
Yes.
I don't know what else I would
think.
Well, I would. I mean, I dread to think if that's the case because I think he will play Partey at right back because I don't think he's got anything else that he would do, and then I just think you're just in.
And I would do anything else other than that.
I think you're in awful territory, yeah, because you're weakening your midfield. You're playing a player who, I mean, they will. It's like he could have a flag over his head saying, "Attack me." Come on, come down my side, Vinicius. Just for 15 minutes, he was there against Fulham. That was when Fulham got on top and got down that left-hand side. And who was it Arsenal played recently when Partey was in that right-back spell? And they said after the game, we knew Thomas Partey would be a right-back, so we deliberately went down that side. I remember he did a post-match interview and he actually flagged it up in the game. And I mean, and you're talking Roman, you're talking Vinicius down that side. It would be, I really would fear for it. But I think that's what he'd do because I don't know what other option you have then if you're missing both Tmber and White and Tomiyasu obviously and even Calafiori who we've seen go there before. I don't know what else he would do.
I mean, yeah, he would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would sort of break the entire team to not do that. I mean, I'd play Partey in midfield then, but I would, be looking at a back five, like a Trossard at wing back, to not do that. That's the level I would have to go to. And that's what scares me, is that, like,
But
it could get brutal.
that's why I would protect Tmber at all costs tomorrow. I just would not play him tomorrow at all.
There's a sort of semi-compelling argument to playing Partey at right back tomorrow to make sure that he doesn't have to play there against.
I would do that tomorrow if White's not fit. If White's deemed not fit and Tmber is kind of on the edge, I would definitely play Partey at right back tomorrow. I wouldn't like it.
You've taught me around on Tmber. Yeah, I'll wrap him in cotton wool.
There you go. I'm very persuasive.
And also quite helpful then to have Madrid not knowing what you're going to do there.
Yeah.
I changed my mind. I'll have a different right back. I like my Partey idea. I'll do that.
Just talking about Madrid, the news came through just before we started recording this that all their players are available who had the ban sort of threat hanging over them from UEFA. Rudiger's got a €40,000 fine and a sort of suspended ban threat hanging over him for a year. Is it? Yeah, a year if he does something wrong again. Same with Mbappe. He's got a slightly cheaper fine. Danny Ceballos fit to play. They haven't got Vinicius included in that, so I don't know what he got or if he escaped punishment altogether. But yeah, all of those players are fit. And I saw Carlo in his press conference today saying that Courtois should be fit because he hasn't played since the international break. And there's talk that Lunan was injured as well, had an injury doubt. And so they were suggesting in the Spanish press today they might have to play their third choice goalkeeper on Tuesday night. But Ancelotti very much saying that, or certainly suggesting anyway, that Courtois will be fit.
There are things you can get at in this Madrid team. I think I can't believe Ferland Mendy is still their left back.
He's injured though, I think, isn't he?
Oh,
I think he's injured.
Advantage Real Madrid.
I think he's injured, and because they played Camavinga at left back against Sociedad in midweek, and they played Tchouaméni at left back, I think.
Okay.
And Tchouaméni suspended obviously for this game on Tuesday night, so he's not going to be available. I'm sure Ferland Mendy's injured. The fullback area is definitely where you can get at them.
Yeah, I mean, I when I saw them against City, I think Fede Valverde was doing the inverted thing, and it's great in possession. But if you get the Martinelli you got on Tuesday night, he's going to love that, and he'll love Lucas Vazquez as well. It makes me think, like, if you can just keep the game in the Madrid half, the first leg, there are chances for Arsenal there. But I say that I don't really believe it. Yeah, no, Camavinga was at, look, Google has it, Camavinga left back, Tchouaméni and Valverde in midfield, Lucas Vazquez at right back, Raúl Asensio as well. Good young defender, but young. So I feel like that's a team to be got at. Just, Mbappe and Vinny and Rodrigo.
Yeah. I spoke to Alex Kirkland. I did a piece with Alex Kirkland after the Berta announcement. He's ESPN's Madrid correspondent, and we were talking about the game as well. And he was, he was saying that the wide areas Arsenal definitely hurt Madrid, but he also said in midfield as well, especially if Valverde's playing right back. That's an area that Arsenal could look to dominate and get hold of the ball, keep the ball, and sort of, as he said, sort of try and play the game in their half. The only issue is then it's suddenly the counter attack, which they're so fast Real Madrid. And again, if they're playing counter attacking football and you've got Partey playing at right back, it's just nightmare scenario for Arsenal. But it's going to be a hell of a game anyway, and I shall be watching from the sports bar at Centre Parks. Very much hoping. I was there last year for the Bayern Munich game. It was 2-2, obviously. That one, hopefully.
I'd take that. I'd take that.
Would you take a draw? I think Arsenal have to have a lead to take to Madrid. Absolutely have to have a lead.
I don't mind. Part of me is like, part of me still believes that Arsenal have got a chance, and then it's like, part of me is also like, I just take not being humiliated. And I don't think Arsenal. What's so frustrating is I don't think Arsenal should have ever had to worry about that until the injuries just got horrible. I think a 1-goal win they could hold that in the Bernabeu.
Right, let me just bring this slide up. This is what Mikel was saying about Saka earlier today. And again, him sort of continuing with this injury theme and getting minutes into players' legs who are just coming back. That's what he had to say. So, on if Saka needs to start tomorrow against Everton to get minutes under his belt, he said it's a possibility. We're going to decide tomorrow what's best option for that, because it's not only him involved. We have a lot of pieces to move, and some players know they're not going to be able to finish the game. So it's a lot to decide on if he has to sort of think about wrapping Saka up in cotton wool and not playing him. He said he needs exposure, and he's going to have that exposure. He's played 30 minutes the other day. He felt really well. He scored a goal and he wants more. He's clear in the last 2 days. He's demanding more. He wants more, so that's a good sign. So that, I think that's important, isn't it? That he needs exposure when you're coming back from, and that's why I would kind of feel if White is under consideration for the Madrid game, I think, and he's deemed fit for tomorrow, it sort of falls into the same category of that of you kind of need exposure to get some minutes, because as you pointed out, White, when he came back before the international break, you could see there was just rustiness there, wasn't there? There was definitely some rustiness there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting how he manages this situation with him, White, Tmber. I think the Tmber decision, though, is it's such an important one for Arsenal. I would, when just the way the season has gone, and I don't want to sound negative and the voice of doom. I can just see if he starts Tmber tomorrow, something happening with Tmber, and I think that would be such a bad move to do.
My only thought, which I've remembered, this is what I thought when I sent the thing to, like, my understanding, and I wrote this on Thursday, I think I wrote this on Thursday, was that with Tmber, it was an impact injury.
Yeah.
So, sports scientists out there, let me know. If you're not feeling the pain from the impact, I mean, does the impact injury, can it lead to the risk of injuries elsewhere? I guess. But if this is just like you got hit really hard in your knee and we were worried, so you soldiered on and came off, I think then maybe he's good to go. But like you, then it's really hard, because like maybe with Gabriel, everyone talks about load of minutes, but Gabriel hadn't played in 2 weeks. When he
played the first game for Brazil, didn't he? And then got suspended, so he hung around over there, watched the game, didn't he? And then came back for the weekend.
For a player like him that's been used to playing 90 every 3 days, you almost think, was one of the issues with the hamstring that he'd had too much rest? I mean, it's, we don't know here and we're speculating. So it is always such a fine line to thread with these athletes that are really hitting like high performance mode at this exact moment, and they are hitting a level where their load is based around every 3 days. What happens if you just pull them back? I don't know. Yeah. I need to go and get a degree in sports science.
Did you listen to Arteta, what he was talking about, the hamstring sort of issues at Arsenal, and not just Arsenal in the Premier League as well? Did you listen to him in the Premier League? I think actually, hold on, I think I brought those. Yes, I did bring those quotes up. It was quite interesting what he was saying on it, and sort of on reducing the load in training. He says we can do, the sample is very, very small, because last year we were the best team in that aspect, so we'll continue with the same methodology and alter things. It's true that this season, where we started with a really short squad with some already injured players in the first 2 international weeks, that really narrowed the team down so much that put more load on the players, but that's the context we live in. It's quite interesting, but especially at the back, when at the start of the season, there was so many, the defense was decimated, wasn't it? There was so many injuries. People were having to play in different positions. He couldn't really rotate at that stage of the season. Did that have an effect on this because he played so much at that stage? It's really hard. Obviously, there's a big blame game going on, which I can understand in the sort of immediate reaction to an injury. It's they've been playing too much, and 3 hamstring tears off the bone. It's not normal. That has to be a reason for that, which I can get. And Arteta said that there's going to be a lot of research done at Arsenal to try and find out exactly. He says we are doing all the research and trying to understand how we can bring this probability down as much as possible. So they will be investigating it, but it's just so hard in these to really be able to pinpoint a reason for this, because it's not just Arsenal, is it? It is Premier League wide. Chelsea have lost recently for a long time. Jackson,
huge numbers of hamstring injuries.
Come back. Yeah, Tottenham have had it. It's been across the league. Reece Nelson, you can't. He's an Arsenal player, but he's not been training at Arsenal. He's been training at Fulham, so, and it's happened to him again, torn off the bone. So it's really interesting how this sort of space. Sam Dean wrote a really good piece in the Telegraph looking at it this week, and the amount and the sheer numbers of it compared to what it used to be, and the severity of the injuries as well. it's definitely, it's an Arsenal problem, obviously, but it's a problem that all teams are having to try and face at the moment with the sheer amount of minutes that their top players are having to play.
Yeah, and I think we have to remember that it's a huge upswing across the big sample of the Premier League, but like for Arsenal, like Mikel Arteta is right. They were in a really good position with injuries last season, and they were playing as many games. They were managing things pretty well. I think to an extent, it's a bit. To me, it always feels a bit like a sort of an avalanche or a snowball rolling down a mountain. When it goes and goes and goes, the strain that you put on the rest of the squad makes it so hard. And sometimes you just have to get lucky and get to an international break, and then you get to them. And Riccardo Calafiori's playing these big competitive games for Italy again that they want to win. Relentless, remorseless. It's why you've got to get your things like your recruitment spot on to make sure you've got strong athletes that can go the course over 60 plus games in a season.
Yeah. I feel like I think Arsenal could have absolutely handled Kai Havertz far better. I look at that injury and think that one, if all of them are avoidable, I felt like that was the avoidable one. There was red flags there. We could see it on the pitch all the time. They didn't protect him well enough. They didn't give him the support he needed in last summer, or January. That felt like an avoidable one that when I sort of point a finger of blame, I'll put that. I will feel the club could have done more there. I'm more on the fence with Gabriel. I just think when you've got one of the best centre-backs in the world, you play that partnership, you play them pretty much all the time. Liverpool will do it. Van Dijk's played every single minute of the Premier League season this season, I think, for Liverpool. And when Canard stays fit, Canard will always play alongside him. And you just keep that partnership going because these centre-backs are the key to your team and winning games. So I feel different for that injury than I do. It's maybe definitely the Havertz one and maybe the Saka one as well. Before we get on to a couple of questions, just on the big news in the Premier League today, not Arsenal related as such, although he's given Arsenal an awful lot of problems over the years. Yeah. Kevin De Bruyne has announced he will be leaving Manchester City at the end of the season. Just one of the Premier League greats, obviously, joy to watch. It's just been a fantastic player. What are your thoughts on Kevin De Bruyne leaving?
Magnificent. The sort of player that I adore. The sort of player as well that he has the ball in almost any spot in the pitch, and he scares the life out of the opposition, and he scares the life out of opposition fans. So unpredictable. And like you say, the damage he's done to Arsenal in the past as well. I'm sure they won't be too disappointed to see him go. I always think it's so hard to judge your exit, isn't it? I think maybe if he'd left last season would have been a really smart time to go. But yeah, all-time great for me. Probably makes it into an all-time Premier League 11 next to Patrick Vieira in midfield. I'd work it out to get him in. That's how good he is.
Yeah, he's been very special. Arteta was asked about him, and he said, "I don't know if he's number 1 or 2 or 3, but for me, he's one of the best players in the history of the Premier League without question. I've never seen or played with a player that can execute that precisely at high speed. He can be running at 33, 34 kilometers an hour and play the ball 30 meters through 2 people to the perfect spot. I haven't seen anybody else do that at that pace." I think that summed it up really perfectly because he is unbelievable at that, running at speed, and then he will just whip the most amazing cross or through ball through to just the perfect position. He was unbelievable at his best. When he was at his peak, he was such a crucial reason for why Man City had the success, and unfortunately Arsenal felt that time and time again when he would score home or away against Arsenal. He's been a thorn in Arsenal's side, so from that regard I'm glad he's going and never going to see him again come up against Arsenal.
They as Pep would say, they cannot replace him, and they actually can't.
No, how do you replace Kevin De Bruyne? Seriously, how do you replace him? It's incredibly tough. It's when you've had one of the greats. We still talk about Arsenal replacing Patrick Vieira 20 odd years on, don't you? And it's like that.
I think that's a great show that it will be like that for 20 years. And, when Phil Foden, who's a great talent, but when he has to sort of really step up next year, as he sort of struggled to do this year, when that's the standard, you're going to fall short of it.
Mm-hmm. Right, let's move on to a couple of questions now before we wrap this one up today. We've got one from Max here. He says, "I'm devastated about Gabriel. I generally thought with Saka being back and everyone else in starting 11, we had a really good shout to beat Madrid. Silver lining conversation topic. Does this improve our chances of Gabby signing an extension in the summer? It seems we've had some success getting players to sign extensions one out on injury. maybe the whispers in their ears from other clubs go away. They're wanting more financial certainty at a time of physical uncertainty, and they have more time to think about something other than the training and the games grind. And Max isn't the only person who put something like this in the comments talking about Gabriel. You know, the fact that now there is a little bit of downtime for him, and it's not just all about the games that he's going to be thinking about. Can Arsenal take advantage of this situation and try and get these talks, which have been going on for a fair while with Gabriel, to be fair, over the line, especially with Berta now in place?
Oh, I would think so. Sort of Pro League always sort of hovers uncomfortably in the background with Gabriel in particular. But, you know, when you talk to people about that, they do all say he's really happy at Arsenal. He feels like there's a lot he wants to achieve. And, you know, the other thing of that is, does it improve Arsenal's chances of signing Gabby? Because whatever happens, he's not going to get to win that big trophy in Europe. And Arsenal probably are much less likely to now. I think it might well do. I certainly don't see that it's going to spur other clubs' interest if they're not seeing him between now and the end of the season. Although, look,
exactly. And if he's not fit during pre-season as well, you know, do you really sign a player who's still injured? Basically, if Arsenal are just determined to get ready for the start of the season, you know, we don't know if that's going to be the case. It could go on longer than that. Could miss the start of the season. I hope that doesn't happen, but maybe that would put off someone from Saudi putting the sort of money down that they would have to put down.
Really like. How to explain? Well, this was the case before the Neymar thing, but they really don't like the idea of spending a lot of money on the big names and not being able to get those big names out on the pitch. I don't think that's really quite a worry with Gabriel, because before this, I think he's one of the Iron Men of European football. But you know, it's a factor. It's not nothing.
Okay, Rasmus says, given the high number of injuries to players this season, is there an argument for a cap on player minutes per month? Could protect player welfare and also provide squad and youth players with more inclusion to the team. Some form of player welfare regulation would force coaches to manage the team minutes, and we would hopefully see the best players fit for longer periods of their career, while also allowing young talent to prove themselves as the stars get a breather. What are your thoughts?
You're not taking that one first. You're going to leave
I will take this one, actually. Okay, fine. I actually thought this was a really interesting argument. I don't see a way that this would ever actually come in, first of all, but I do think it's an interesting. It would be an interesting thing to raise. You know, I like the idea of the benefit of it, of being able to, because you want the best players fit, don't you? And I think this season has basically been it's been a survival of the fittest, isn't it? And I'm not just saying that's why Liverpool are going to win the league by distance, but they have had the best luck when it comes to key players this season. And you want players fit for the majority of the season. If the amount of minutes and the demands that are put on their bodies now, you know, imagine next season. You know, I'm so glad Arsenal are not in that fast of a competition in the summer in the Club World Cup. But Man City and Chelsea are basically going to have to play all this summer as well, then go straight into the Premier League, and then they've got the World Cup next summer. I mean, it's madness, and that surely can't continue, because they're just going to lose players next season, and you're not going to get to see the best players. Fans are going to be spending thousands of pounds on season tickets. They're going to be robbed every week of seeing the players they really want to see in action. It just feels unsustainable what we're asking the players to do now. So if something like this did come in, I think it'd be a good argument. And I think the point about some players would get a breather, and that would allow more youngsters maybe to come through and benefit and develop that. I think that's a good point. The only issue is how would you even enforce it? Because some months there might be 2 games or 3 games, and other months in December you might have 9 or 10 games or something like that. So how do you decide how many minutes per month players are allowed to play? So I don't think it would ever actually come in, but I think it's a really interesting point.
Yeah, and like, what about in May as well, when you shouldn't be rotating? You know, you've got to just get across the finish line. What about if you're a team threatened with relegation and someone from the Premier League, you know, if you're Ipswich Town and someone saying, no, you can't play Liam Delap this week. I feel like in the end, we sort of come at this from so many different angles of like, they need to play fewer games? That won't happen. This won't happen. No club will vote for it. It feels like in the end to me, before too long, and this isn't reporting, this is just my suspicion, we'll just see the Premier League and maybe UEFA increase the squad numbers. You have a squad of 28 rather than, or you change, you ditch some of the what are our rules now? It was the homegrown rule. You sort of ditch that in the Premier League or adjust that. I think that seems more likely to me. And then that way they'll sign more players and charge more for season tickets to sign more players, and
well, they'd have to change
revenue
PSR
keeps
rules.
going up.
They have to loosen the PSR rules if they're going to have bigger squads.
Well, yeah, but that's it. You sort of do that as a macro package, don't you? You sort of say, okay, you know, we can, and I think they should increase the PSR limits because they're 15 years old. Yeah, I think that's the what will be the fix. But I do really like Rasmus's idea. I certainly would be intrigued about the idea of, and again, it will sometimes be unfair, but players in their early years having their minutes limited a bit, so you don't run into too many more Jack Wilshere type or Wayne Rooney type situations.
Nico Williams, your favourite topic here. So obviously we've had a lot to talk about Nico Williams this week, and Andrea Berta sort of manoeuvring to put Arsenal in a good position ahead of the summer. DJD says, excited as I and Charles and many more may be about the possibility of signing Nico Williams, it doesn't make sense offering him higher wages than Saka, does it? And Mason says, I wouldn't be mad about the Williams signing, but for me, Simon's all days dynamic, versatile, direct, speaks English and has played outside the Netherlands in a couple of different leagues. I believe Arsenal will suit him to a T, bring him in. Just on the difference between Arsenal and Liverpool's contrasting injury records, watching Salah play versus Saka paints a vivid picture. Salah mostly sits in the right corner waiting to be passed to, doesn't do half the defensive work that Saka is required to do. And Salah had the summer off. Yeah, I agree. It's very different, the demands that Arsenal and Arteta asked of his wingers than is asked of Salah. So Nico Williams, we haven't spoken about him yet. Obviously, I know you've raised your concerns about Arsenal potentially signing Nico Williams before on this. I'm still of the boat that he excites me. I think he could be brilliant. I also think he could struggle. So I would have my reservations about the signing, but I think there is huge potential there to be unlocked in Nico Williams, and I would like the deal. But yeah, it's a very good point. Obviously, we know how high wages he's going to be on, where he is on at Atletico Bilbao, and any club who are going to take him on, you would think are going to have to at least match those wages, and then suddenly that puts him right at the top of Arsenal's wage structure. And this young kid coming in who's done, I say done very little. He's won the Euros, but you know what I mean. There's no way he can come in and be on more than like Saka and stuff. So what does that do to Arsenal's wage bill? Because surely everyone else would have to. Some of the key senior players at Arsenal would have to be above Nico Williams. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's the way the wage has always been the thing that sort of gives me pause for concern. I mean, you're talking a player that's on Gabriel Martinelli money and doesn't have Gabriel Martinelli's output, frankly. Fewer goals and assists in La Liga, much sort of worse for underlying XG, XA as well. He's an interesting player, and if you sort of bring him in as a competitor for Martinelli, great. But to have best part of 400 grand a week on your left hand side, I don't know. It just still doesn't feel to me like the deal you've got to do. I mean, the challenge is I don't find a load of left wingers that I like more. And I know that even the ones that I do like Rafael Leao, needs work. He needs to sort of up the end product. So many other ones have gone as well. Someone like Kvara, Rodrigo as well. I don't see anyone else becoming available, but I do worry about spending a lot of money on just that'll do. And to me, it feels like Nico Williams is that'll do.
I don't think he's that'll do to Mikel Arteta though. I think Arteta, if the Arsenal get him, I think Arteta really wants Nico Williams. I don't think it's a that'll do signing for Mikel Arteta. Well, you don't chase a player for as long as Arsenal have chased him.
I don't see it. I don't see it in the end product. I don't see it. A lot of sort of. I appreciate he's really good at dribbling the ball and getting his team upfield. It doesn't amount to a lot. How
old is he? You're talking about 22-year-old though, aren't you? So is he 22? Yeah,
so is Martinelli.
Yeah.
Martinelli's currently 22, 23?
About that, yeah, 23 maybe. 23,
yeah. Honestly, that's to me that feels like the argument to go and get an older left winger and sort of put Martinelli firmly in reserve, but bring him up in 2-3 years. Yeah, I'm very open to being proven wrong here, but I keep asking sort of where's the end. The thing that drives Arsenal fans mad about Martinelli is the lack of end product. Well, show me that for Nico Williams outside of Euro 2024.
Okay. Last one here. This is quite an interesting one. Crossy by name.
Oh,
I presume this isn't John Cross. It says, hope
he would never ask us for a combined 11, would he?
No, definitely wouldn't. Hope you're both good. My emotions are slowly coming back to normal after the high of Starboy's return and the low of losing Big Gabby. My question is, what would your combined 11 be of Arsenal and Madrid? Here is mine. He's gone Raya in goal, Tmber, Saliba, Gabriel, MLS. So complete Arsenal back five. Rice, Valverde in midfield as the holders. Saka, Bellingham at 10, Vinny left, and then he's gone Marino, but then admits it was Mbappe, obviously, below. But he says, I think the Arsenal back five is one of, if not the best in the world. Not sure who I'd take out Madrid. I thought this was interesting because I thought to myself, that can't be right. There's got to be a Madrid player in there in the back four. I'd have Courtois ahead of that. I love David Raya, but I would have Courtois in goal. He'd be my goalkeeper in the combined 11, as much as I love David Raya. But then elsewhere, I was looking at the Madrid and I was like, I know Rudiger's great. They've got some, but there's no way it's not Saliba and Gabriel as your two centre backs in the combined 11, is it?
No,
It's definitely mine. I would say I think I'd have Tmber at right back. In it, I could Carvajal's been brilliant, but he's been injured for ages. I suppose if you're talking about what they've done and all that sort of stuff, then yeah, you'd have Carvajal at right back, wouldn't you? But right now, I'd have Tmber. Definitely. I don't know about, I'd probably have Mendy over MLS maybe.
No.
I think just for experience. I more than anything else, I don't know. But again, if you're talking about form right now and everything, MLS is as good as most out there. I just think it's really interesting. The more you think about it, you're like, yeah, you're right. Arsenal's back four is, potentially up there better in every position than Real Madrid.
Yeah, I mean, I probably, other than Courtois, and even with Courtois, you're going to have to get him to do something he doesn't like at all and be that ball playing goalkeeper. I think other than Courtois, cross by name, Daniel has got this about spot on.
Yeah. I'd certainly be Rice Valverde. Would certainly be my pick in midfield. I would definitely have Saka on the right. As much as I like Rodrigo and he's a massive big game player, I'd still have Saka on the right. I'd definitely have Bellingham in that sort of central 10 role, and I'd have Vinny on the left, and I'd have Mbappe up front. So,
I mean, I wouldn't play Bellingham as a 10, but yeah, I'd sort of 4-3. I'd 4-3-3 it. Yeah, and Valverde and Bellingham as the 8s. Yeah, I mean, Bellingham on that left hand, like in that left pocket, just sensational. I think he's the best midfielder in the world.
Yeah, it'd be nice if he was injured on Tuesday.
Yeah, we can but hope. Well, I'll be at their training session, so
go and 2-foot him. Go and 2-foot him. Make sure he's back for the next big England game, but you can take.
The next big England game's what, a year and a bit, half away.
Yeah, that is true. The next big England game. That is very true. Who have they got this weekend? Valencia tomorrow, 3 o'clock kickoff tomorrow. At the Bernabeu for them. 4 goals they conceded at home to Sociedad in midweek. I was following that on the way home from the Arsenal game with interest at the amount of goals that they were shipping in that one. Mikel Marino is going to terrorise them. It's going to absolutely terrorise them. It'll be fun to watch.
I mean, I have to write my preview column, and I've pretty much decided that the Arsenal bit of the preview column will be like a makeshift defense is going to crumble, and it's not the one you think. It's the Real Madrid one. I just think that they probably will still score, but I think there's something here for Arsenal in the first leg at least.
Well, that's a nice place to leave it, and we will leave it there as we head towards the 50-minute mark. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, mate, I'll be back, everyone, tomorrow, not in the morning because I'm leaving at about 6 in the morning to get up to Goodison Park for the lunchtime kickoff, but I will do a video after the game going over, hopefully, what's been a good Arsenal win and my player ratings, so be sure to join me for that. And then on Sunday, I'll be doing the usual more in-depth reaction show. Where are you this weekend, mate? You got a game?
No, at home this weekend.
At home in your new home.
Telly. Yeah.
Making your new home feel all nice. I hope you've got a big Arsenal shrine in there somewhere. Get North Bank, get North Banksy in to decorate your house.
We have an actual Banksy round the road as well. I'm really doxing myself here.
I know, you just told everyone where you live. Nice. Until then, everyone, have a great weekend. Have a great end to your Friday night, and I'll be back tomorrow to speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.